So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So today's guest is awesome, Annette Ferguson. If you haven't seen her, I'm sure you have. She's been on social media everywhere. Her superpowers are finances, wealth, all sorts of different things. I'll let you introduce yourself, Annette, in a second. But if you haven't seen Annette, I don't know where you've been, because Annette's been popping up on my feeds everywhere, and everybody on those feeds has been popping up. So check out, I'll put a link below, check out Annette's Instagram, her Facebook, and her TikTok. Yes, TikTok. Annette's actually using TikTok and pushing on TikTok a lot. So Annette, thank you for taking the time to come and see us today and share your story. I reached out to you a little while ago because you were appearing everywhere, and your subject matter isn't one that's normally deemed social media worthy, as it were, or as interesting, is it? Lots of people are scared of doing what you do, or every sort of accountancy practices and accounting that I ever worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, Ricky. I really appreciate it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't typically see that many accountants and accountancy firms producing content at scale.
And you've been doing that a little while now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So let's go back a second, because obviously you're very successful. You work with lots of successful people, and you help businesses of all shapes and sizes. And you're a big champion of personal brand and positioning and awareness. Now, when did you start? How long have you been in business?
So I've been in business for 11 years now. Mm-hmm. And I started my sort of personal brand work around about 8 years ago. But I have to say it was very on and off at that point in time. I did start a YouTube channel. I did start doing videos. It was before we all had iPhones and things. So I was using one of those old flip cams to do it. And it was, looking back, they were quite frankly horrendous. But I also started a podcast at that point in time, which I stopped probably within 6 months, and was not consistent with it. Mainly at that point because my business was pretty much still in its infancy, and I didn't have any support on that side, and I just was being pulled in too many directions. And I wasn't interested particularly in learning things like podcast editing and video editing. So it kind of ended up falling by the wayside because it felt like a chore for me at that point in time. Now, I really wish that I'd kept with it from then, because, oh my goodness, it would have been incredible to see the results now. But I didn't. So on and off for the last 8 years, I've been focusing on my personal brand, much more strongly within the last couple of years.
Yeah. Sorry, we're in the studio, so that's why we left something there. But now, with the personal brand, because the interesting thing is, so you started this 8 years ago, which is a long time in the personal brand positioning, really. Yeah. Now, your podcast is a very cool podcast. How do people find that?
So people find, my podcast is Uncover Wealth Radio, and people find it, either by searching for finance stuff in, any of the podcast players, or, of course, we have a lot of content that goes out to our other platforms that direct people back to it, and as well promoting it to our email list.
Okay. And what would you say is your superpower?
My superpower is helping business owners take home more money from their business.
Okay. And how do you do that?
So we do that, one, through our free content, of course. But secondly, we have sort of two avenues that we do that with. So we have accounting, bookkeeping clients who we don't just do the number crunching stuff for. We also work with kind of coaching and mentoring them really to increase the profitability in their business. We use a method of cash management called the Profit First Method, which is a book which I happen to have at arm's length here, by Mike Malkowitz, which we are certified in helping and supporting business owners with. So that is what we do on that side. And we also have the Business Wealth Academy, which is a 12-month program, which basically steps people through increased profitability as well. It kind of raises it one level further than we do with our accounting and bookkeeping clients, and really supports and mentors them to kind of skyrocket and upgrade their finances over a 12-month period.
Okay. So now we was talking earlier, just before we came on air, that there are lots of mentors and coaches and lots of people doing stuff right now, and lots sort of just appearing. But you've been doing it quite some time now, and the things that you're doing with your team have been very successful. Your podcasts are awesome. And you've also been you've been using TikTok. Now, lots of people have put their toes in the water with TikTok and then they sort of leave it, but you're using it quite a bit, aren't you? How do you find TikTok?
I quite like it. It's a funny old place, really, because a lot of people will say, oh, it's only for kids, etc., etc. But actually, when you look at the demographics of TikTok, it's skewing older and older because the parents are coming on, often to check on the kids, but they are coming on nonetheless. And therefore, actually, when you look at the demographic data, the people on TikTok are getting older. Also, people say, well, I don't want to watch dance videos, etc., etc. Well, TikTok has an algorithm like all the other platforms, and therefore the stuff that you like and comment on and watch more, that's what you get served. So if you like and comment on all the dance videos, you're going to get served those. But if you like and comment on the videos that are around business, at which there are a lot now on TikTok, then you'll get served those. So actually, it's not a platform just for the kids at all. And we've had clients directly come to us who have said, I first found you on TikTok. The other thing is that, people finding you on TikTok, they will migrate to other platforms and check out your other stuff. So TikTok has a really easy integration both with YouTube and with Instagram. We get increases in subscribers through both those channels coming over from TikTok. We get direct messages on Instagram from people who've watched us on TikTok. We get subscribers on YouTube from people who've watched us on TikTok. So there's a filtering through process that happens there as well.
And that's right. I think the other thing that's interesting with TikTok is that everyone does say, it's for the younger generation, but that's the next generation of buyers and influencers. Yeah. So in fact, you do need to be on all the platforms, and you are on the platforms. Now, you said earlier that you wish you continued the consistency that you are now, probably 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and that's because you've been positioning and growing your personal brand. Now, what's your TikTok handle?
Annette_Fergs.
Okay, now I'll put that link below, and that's across all your networks.
It is, yeah, that's all our platforms are pretty much that.
And when people, if you subscribe or connect and follow, and you will actually see some really, really useful content, and then you will see how consistent and how cool Annette's content is, because consistency on personal brand is a really big thing, as you will champion. Because a lot of people, like I say, they just do it a little bit, doesn't necessarily get the results they want, so they sort of give up at that point.
And I think part of the problem is people confuse consistency with relentlessness. So they think when they go onto a platform, they have to be posting 7 times a day on every platform, and that becomes overwhelming. So they try it for a few days or a few weeks or a few months, and then they're like, whoa, I cannot handle this. This is way too much. And they just stop it all. Whereas actually, if you're turning up even twice a week, but you're doing it every Tuesday and Thursday, your audience know that, then that's consistency.
And it is massively important, isn't it? Because I think Instagram and social media are interesting spaces, and you do use it heavily. And I would recommend everyone look and see your posts and connect with you, because a lot of people who use these contents, particularly the younger generation, it can actually affect them mentally if they worry about what people are thinking or caring for the haters. Because I'm sure we were discussing earlier about getting haters and crazy people that connect. But it is really, if you go into obscurity, no one knows you. People buy from who they know.
Yeah.
Now, should we go back to you started your business 11 years ago. What did you do before?
So before that, I worked in oil and gas. So basically, I trained as a chartered accountant with a small accounting practice in Edinburgh. I then moved to London and worked in investment banking for a short period of time.
Oh, you've gone.
and gas. I moved into my own business, into my own firm. Oh, I'm here. I'm back.
You're there. You disappeared. The little internet gremlins. Got oil and
I don't know where I left off there.
Oil and gas, and then you come back.
Okay, so yeah, I played with a small chartered accounting firm in Edinburgh. After that, I worked in investment banking for about a year and a half doing financial control. I then moved into oil and gas, again doing financial control type roles, and it was at that point that I then set up my own business.
Now, finances and accountancy and a lot of businesses that don't know their numbers, obviously that's critical. They would fail straight away in a lot of things. What's the one piece of advice you would give businesses?
The big thing for me is making sure that you don't have basically money leaking out your business, because as business owners, we often solely focus on the revenue generation side of things. We need to grow revenue. That's all the messages we get. It's all around that, which is important. Do not get me wrong. Revenue growth for a growth of a business is incredibly important. But revenue growth without corresponding profit growth is just you working harder and pushing more for nothing else, for no extra benefit. And so it's really important to make sure that you're in control of your costs as well at the same time, and that actually your profit is growing with your revenue at the same time. So I recommend that people watch out for what I call money leaks in a business. It's those things where, you know, you might sign up for a subscription and you're never using it and you don't cancel it, or a membership and you do the same with. And before you know it, you've got 7 or 8 things that you're each paying 20, 50, 100 quid a month for, and actually you're getting no value from them at all. And so making sure that you don't have those things in your business, because they're just silly money wasters. And you don't want to be carrying those along because they're serving no purpose.
Yeah, and that's a big exercise. That's a big exercise, but an awesome exercise to do. We've done that in the company, where we have lots of different subscriptions for animation programs or different softwares. And the teams ask for things, but then you do need to check to see if the team use them, because you'll spend hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands on software and equipment that actually is just not being used.
Completely.
And the same, turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. In fact, it's probably earning more money when it was a smaller business in terms of profitability than as a bigger business, because the bigger the company, the more the overheads, the more the software, everything that comes in there. So I have 3 questions I normally give everyone. I know that you're aware of those. What advice would you give your younger self?
The advice I would give my younger self is, I guess it's one that many, many people have said many times over, but it's don't sweat the small stuff. You know, stuff happens. That's okay. You know, stuff you can't control. Don't worry about that stuff.
Okay. Cool. And what about a piece of advice for lots of entrepreneurs? Because obviously with COVID and everything that's going on at the moment, there are lots of people who've been made redundant, and lots of people starting businesses now. And what advice would you give those who are starting a business right
now? If you're starting a business right now, I would advise people to go into it with a bootstrapping mindset rather than a debt mindset. So at this point in time, if you start a business, in reality, you have no idea how it will do. You just don't know. Therefore, don't leverage yourself up to the eyeballs in debt to start it. For most businesses, you don't need a bucket load of cash to start them. Just get started. Try and bootstrap it as much as you can until you figure out all the stuff there is to figure out when you start running a business. So, who to market to, how to market. You don't need to pay for, $5,000 for a logo on day 1. You don't need to pay $10,000 for a website on day 2. That doesn't need to happen. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, and there's a lot of ways that you can reach your target audience and sell without having to spend a bucket load of cash and get into a ton of debt on day 1 of your business.
No, that's great advice. And I think that's important. A lot of people think they have to compete with the branding and the sites. And I after interviewing lots of successful people, and going to lots of different events, the most successful people are those that are being prolific. So they take action, they fail, they evolve, they re-enter. So that's after success, and that's the success cycle. So,
and I think a lot of people forget that they're comparing their day one to somebody else's day,
year 20.
Yeah, exactly. Thousands and thousands. And so don't compare your day one to someone else's year 10, because that will never stack up. And, you cannot expect your business to look like theirs at the very beginning.
Now, one thing I think is really important, and I think this is why people should connect and listen to your shows or podcasts for information. Lots of companies, particularly the small companies, end up sort of being run by their accountant. They don't necessarily know their numbers, and they let their accountant sort of tell them stuff, and then they get these big bills, whereas actually you have to know your numbers, and your accountants work for you to get that information, because if you don't have it, you're ultimately working for accountants who aren't going to necessarily maybe take the risk, but then all of a sudden you just get a massive bill at the end of it. So knowing your numbers and listening to some of the profit tips, the top tips, and the money leakage example you said there, which is huge. For if everybody just did that as a company, they'd probably save a couple hundred, if not £1,000 a month. Easily.
And, I think that people need to be in communication regularly with their accountant. For our accounting clients, we do monthly calls as standard to go through the monthly numbers, to review things, to review the forecasts, all those kinds of things. And I think if you're not in a dialogue with your accountant, then there's potentially going to be some financial issues that you discover too late, that you can't rectify. You have to wait another year to fix, etc., etc. Whereas if you're looking at things on a regular basis, actually you can spot that something's gone funny over here, and therefore you can course correct within a month. You don't need to wait till the year end to go, oh wait, hang on, what happened over there? Oh, we better fix that. You actually are able to use the numbers to help drive the business forward as well. I know when we have new clients come on board, a lot of the things they tell me is that they didn't have communication with their previous accountant, and that's why they're moving, because they understand that actually being in a dialogue with your accountant is really important in terms of the financial health of your business.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I think some companies, as they grow, they'll get their internal bookkeeping and they'll have their internal accounts teams. But management accounts and actually understanding where your money's going and how it's working for you is hugely important in business, isn't it?
Completely.
And I think one thing that I've noticed with a lot of businesses as well is, particularly the sole traders, they try and do the accounts themselves and spend loads of time stressing over it, when actually if they gave it to a good accountant, one that's growing, one that's pushing, they would be able to do what they do best, and that would be push their business or make money.
Completely. And it's more than likely, in all honesty, that if you are trying to do it yourself, you're probably making mistakes. Because unless you've read all the tax legislation and studied the tax law, then, do you know the ins and outs of it? I would not attempt an electrical rewiring of my house because I have not studied to be an electrician. Therefore, it is really surprising when an electrician decides that they want to do their own bookkeeping and their own tax submissions, because they've not studied accounting. And so, it's important to bear that in mind when you are trying to do your own stuff. It's not just a time issue, but do you have time to actually study the legislation? And if you don't, the likelihood is you're paying more tax than you need to. Or you have claimed loads of stuff you're not actually allowed to, and at some point when you get a tax investigation, you're going to have a big issue.
And I think the other thing as well is that people are delusional by thinking if they do it themselves, they're saving money. But actually, good accountants will actually not only save money, they'll save probably more than what they would actually completely charge. Even if you're paying a lot for an accountancy firm, it's actually worth the weight in gold. Particularly one that's growing. So what does success look like for you?
For me, success is linked to choices.
Okay.
So for me, when whether the choice is around wanting to work an 80-hour week or wanting to work a 20-hour week, it doesn't matter as long as you're making the conscious choice. So that's what success is for me. It's being able to have the ability to make the choices that I want to make at the point in time I want to make them.
Okay, that's a cool answer. I like that one. That's a good answer. That means that you can have a day off if you want to have a day off, or if you want to work the other day, you do it. No, that's
completely. It's completely a choice.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
What I want to be when I grow up is a really interesting question, because from the age of about 10, I've wanted to run a business.
Okay.
And I never really knew what guise that would take and what type of business that would be. And so, for me, there's the possibility that I may at some point have other businesses that I set up, or that I come in as a non-exec or something like that. It would be around business though.
Okay. So having different businesses or doing other things in business. Okay. What you mentioned a book earlier. What sort of books, or what would you say are a couple of books that you would recommend for people that have helped you?
I'm a big business book reader. I have bookshelves of business books. Of course, the one main one is Profit First. I would highly recommend any business owner to read it. It helps you manage cash so that you are focused on profit, and that is massively important. Some other great books that I have read are Bigger Than You by Kelly Roach, which focuses on leadership within your business. And another one is Traction. Now, who is Traction by? Can I see it? I don't think I can, and I cannot remember who it's by. But again, that focuses on kind of systemizations of team structure, meeting structures, those kinds of things, in order to help you scale.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how has the current climate affected you currently? I was imagining you'd be quite busy anyway. Would you not?
Yeah, we've got even busier, in all honesty. Lots of changes of regulations, furloughs, grants, etc. So we've been even busier than normal. We've grown over this time as well. We're very lucky to be in an industry that everyone needs an accountant at this point in time more than ever to help and support them with, as I say, the various changes that are happening and those kinds of things. So yeah, we've been very lucky over this period of time to be able to still grow and support clients and all those things.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today on coming on to the show and sharing some insights. And what's your favourite social media channel? Because you are on all of them. So what's your favourite one?
Oh, my favourite channel is probably still Facebook, to be honest. That would be the one that, if I'm going to lose myself in the scroll, it will be on Facebook. So it's probably there, I would have to say.
And which one do you think has been most successful for your business?
Good question. In all honesty, probably Facebook, and that is probably because that's where I spend personally most of my time as well. I think there's probably a correlation between the two.
Okay. Now, I'm sure lots of the audience have seen your posts, or if they haven't seen your posts, they will now, and they should connect with you. Great advice. The podcast that you gave the other day was really interesting. I think it was about prices or something.
Oh, yeah.
And the value that
doubling your prices.
Doubling your prices and then going again on what you would serve. I thought that was quite an interesting podcast. I've actually said to a few people, I listened to it. It's a great exercise. If you double the service level, match the price. If not, why not? If you're in a service business, and creating raving customers, then that's what you need to do. So that's quite interesting. I mean, your podcasts are it's all different lengths. We'll share your social media links down below. If anyone can reach out, is Facebook the best way to get hold of you, or your website? What's the best way to get hold of you or your team?
Yeah, the best place to get hold of me is probably on Facebook. You can also join my Facebook group, which is called the Uncover Wealth Community.
And I say, keep smashing it. I don't know many accountancy firms and businesses like yours that are pushing so much on the social media. I think everyone should be doing it. And it amazes me how everyone just goes, don't have time, doesn't work, that's the next generation. But they're the next generation of buyers. If you look at, one thing before we close, why this is so important, was if you look at Elon Musk and you look at Steve Jobs, both of them were prolific in their products and services, but they inspired and got the younger generations so that now those generations are the future buyers. And that's how they've evolved. That's how Apple products have evolved, by getting younger audiences and kids all on iPads and iPhones. And Elon with the cars. All the kids will know Elon Musk and Tesla. They wouldn't be able to name any of the other CEOs in the businesses because they're pushing themselves as well. Thank you ever so much for coming on, Annette. I hope the audience actually will reach out and share and look and watch your social media channels, because they are awesome. And you're a perfect example of brand consistency. You don't get distracted. Your team will helping you on your social media push. And on behalf of everyone, thank you ever so much for coming on the show.